I would say sometimes it's pretty clear from a company's name what they do. Sometimes not. You would never think that Apple creates laptops unless, well, everyone knows that, I guess. But you wouldn't know from the name. And that is the same for I Hate Ironing. That was a joke. I Hate Ironing does what it says on the tin, but actually it does much more than that now. But at one point, that was the primary aim of the company. So Matt Connelly, one day, he is the founder of I Hate Ironing, was walking past a dry cleaners, a laundry service in Clapham, and thought, there's no chance that this company is going to be able to get its name out there, really. It's only through natural footfall that people are going to go in. So he thought, not only that, this legacy model of just laundry services that are dotted around is kind of broken, and I potentially can help out here. So he has created a service on top of these companies where it is a delivery and collection service straight to your front door. So it's an ingenious idea because it helps out everyone. It helps the laundry companies out because it gives them extra marketing, gives them further connection to their potential customer base in the future. But also at the same time, it is much more convenient for the customer. You can have your laundry delivered and collected from your door. You don't have to go and walk down to a random laundry shop around some corner that you didn't even know existed beforehand. So it helps everyone out. I think in the context of the first 100 days, and this doesn't always happen, but Matt was like incredibly candid with his comments. And there's some good things in there, there's some bad things in there, some mishaps. But it's so basic, some of the comments. I think it's just hugely relatable because you can directly understand how to do it and how it worked out in practice. Even from just printing off flyers and asking 5,000 different houses to give you a go, and only maybe one or two saying yes, but that's all you need. That's all you need for your first customer. It's time to go 100 days in. Let's roll the tapes.
The order came through, and my idea was that I'd take it to a dry cleaner and get them cleaned and go from there. But I didn't see the need in building the partnerships until we tested if we could actually get orders through. And what if you realise is that it isn't a real business? For some people, you wonder if there's some extraordinary capabilities that entrepreneurs have, and I question whether I had those capabilities. Yeah.
So there's been that element, but I'd like to start with just a bit about your background, and then we can jump into the 5 things that can be the premise of the conversation. As I say, when it'll be cut down to about half an hour, so hopefully quite to the point. But yeah, Matt, thank you for joining me. I came across your business, I think, a few months ago, and what struck me immediately was the fact that it was so obvious what the primary aim of the business was, just looking at the domain name. And so I read a bit more about it and thought, I just think it'd be really cool to have a conversation. So appreciate your time.
Thanks, Phil. It's really, really, really great to be on the pod today. As I said to you before, we started filming. I think it's a really great premise. The actual taking that leap to actually start your own business is a really, really big step. And I think demystifying what the first few months are like for other people is a really, really great idea. So yeah, really happy to be on.
I was looking through the 5 points. We'll go through those in a sec, but I was reading them, and sometimes, I'm not going to name guests, but you get some glossy stuff that just seems, yeah, that's quite cool. You did that. But I really enjoyed a few of your points you sent over. There's definitely some comical moments in there, I suppose, that seem fine now, but at the time were probably quite daunting. But I think with all my guests, I think it's quite useful just to understand a bit more about your background, early life. And, did you always want to start a business, or did you think, okay, I'll be employed for a bit? Were there any signs that actually you were more destined to have your own thing? I'm always intrigued about that, especially, growing up with the obvious signs. I'd like to hear. Yeah, it'd be good to hear more about that.
Yeah, I think looking back, there was certainly some telltale signs from right from my school days that perhaps this would be the path that I would choose. Firstly, I started working in one form or another really young. So I think at 12 or 13, I had a paper round, and then I had a second paper round, and I was able to sort of earn some money from quite a young age. But I think that the first venture that I did, I was earning about £10 a week for a paper round, getting up at 6 o'clock every morning, going out on my bike and delivering papers all around the local area. And around that time that the National Lottery was launched, and in the first couple of weeks that the lottery was had a lot of hype around it, and it was considered really exciting. And I started something at our school whereby you couldn't play the National Lottery unless you were 16, and we were 13 at the time. And I did something where there was the bonus ball that came out every week, and I had a grid with the numbers 1 to 49 on, and I went round our playgrounds asking people to choose what they thought that the bonus ball would be, and they each gave me 20 pence, and that whoever would come up as the right choice of the bonus ball would win £5. And I sold all 49 squares in the first couple of weeks, so that made £9.80, and I got the 480, and the winner got £5. And it was sort of the first realization that I'd made £4.80 in, I think it was like 2 lunchtimes compared to 7 mornings, going out and delivering papers in the cold for an hour each morning for £10 or whatever it was. And that was probably the first venture into entrepreneurship. It didn't last too long, but it definitely gave me a taste for doing that type of thing. And then after that, there was I ventured into selling snacks and things like that. There was a few of us that used to miss the bus to school to wait for a supermarket to open, and then go and buy a few things and sell them on at lunchtime. So yeah, definitely some early signs that this might be the career path for me.
I love that. I was trying to do the maths in my head as you were talking about the grid, and I was like, yeah, it's about £5 profit. That's pretty good, especially when you're a kid. I mean, it's like having £1 million now. I mean, it's literally endless amount of cash to have at such a young age. So, okay, that's clear. So there were clearly signs that you had some sort of adventurous entrepreneurial spirit to actually even do that at that age. Did that carry on as you went through school and then potentially higher education, or then you got a job? Was that even present there, or did you start something from school straight away? I say we spoke before. I think you were involved in startups before I Hate Ironing. So yeah, how did that pan out?
Yeah, so my journey through university was more or less straight sailing. I did an undergraduate degree in Leeds, then I went over to do a postgrad in Dublin, at University College Dublin, and that was a business postgrad. But my real focus in that was entrepreneurship. So I started out on the straight business strand of the course, and then moved over to the entrepreneurial. So the more startup focused side of that. And that was, I think, I had that interest in entrepreneurship from a young age. After that, I went and did a graduate program, and that was at Mercer. And the graduate program was really great in terms of training. They did a lot of training on soft skills, how to communicate with people, but the actual role of working in a large corporate, I did feel it quite stifling. And I think within a year of working in that environment, I knew it wasn't for me. I think by the time I'd finished that year, I knew that at some stage I would start something for myself. And even if that wasn't straight away, I knew that's where I wanted to go eventually.
And then there was a period where you did work. Was it called the hatchery, where you were working with startups? And how long did that last for? How successful was it? Did that sort of pivot you onto the business that you're in now? How did that link in?
Yeah, so the hatchery was a part of London Metropolitan University, and this was in the early days of the startup scene developing in Shoreditch, and it was a really exciting place to work, and we had this building on Kingsland Road, and we housed about 40 startups. Some of them had a commercial relationship with the university where they paid for their space, and we also gave space and support to students and graduates who were looking to build something. My role was to help these graduate startups to get off the ground and give them whatever support they needed. And I think that role was really fundamental in me taking the step to launch ihateironing. I'd say probably it was 50% in terms of building knowledge and connections, but also 50% in terms of the confidence to go out there and do something for myself. I mixed with a lot of people that were starting their own businesses, mixed with a lot of people who successfully built their own businesses. And I think what that did for me was really remove the fear factor. I think there's certainly the case before you've built something yourself that for but once I'd got exposure to a lot of people and some successful people as well, I started to believe that I could be as capable, and I could certainly do something similar to what some of these successful people have done.
And before we go into the first 100 days, and also I think even just the point where it dawned on you that maybe there's an opportunity here, especially in the laundry space. If you were to distill those qualities as an entrepreneur that maybe at one point you had doubt in, what would you say those qualities are?
So I think that the things that I perhaps doubted was there a level of commercial acumen or a level of management skills that I didn't quite have, and was there some gap in knowledge that I'd need to work for another 10 years before I sort of had the level of experience needed. And then I think it's been around people who maybe had less knowledge than I did or less experience than I did, but were still making a go of things and having success really gave me that bit of confidence.
And then I was reading an interview with you, and you said that, and this must have been shortly after you were walking past, was that a dry cleaners in Clapham? Forgive me if I'm wrong. And it dawned on you that there was a potentially totally different business model to the one they were running. I'm just intrigued about that moment where it dawned on you. Obviously, you've had that previous experience within startups. You worked at the hatchery. You've shown those traits from an early age through school and even things like the lottery. But there is that moment, isn't there, where you walked past a shop and it struck you that there's potential to do this totally differently.
Think about what I was going to do, and I was actually running past a shop, and I seem to have moments of clarity when I run. Like I'm not no great runner, but I've done a marathon in the past, done a few half marathons, and I used to run a lot, more than I do now. And yeah, I always thought well, if there's a tough thing at work, that a tough problem to crack, often the idea will come to me when I'm out exercising, 3 or 4K into an 8K run. Um, Solutions to problems often present themselves, and so by chance, when I was out running, I ran past this dry cleaners, and they had a big sign in their window advertising shirts washed and ironed for £1. And having my shirts ironed for work every day was a bit of a pain point for me. I and yeah, I used a local dry cleaner that was charging me £2, and it was obviously noticeable to me that there was that pound difference in cost, and I think that big sign got the cogs turning. And by the time I got back to my flat in Clapham, I had the idea of bringing shirts to this guy, generating extra revenue for him, because it was a backstreet dry cleaners, and I deduced that perhaps he's doing cheap prices because he's got no footfall, and that's the only way he could generate some revenue. So I had the idea that I'd make something easy for people like me, where somebody would come to the house and collect and deliver, based on a simple ordering system, and we'd take away one of the big problems in my life, that was getting a shirt ironed every day for work. And whilst it's not the be all and end all, it was enough of an irritant every day for me to think there'd be other people that have had a similar problem. And the existing solutions of ironing shirts myself, taken to the dry cleaners that will take a few days to get them back to you. It made me think there's a bit of an opportunity there.
And I think as you've already said, you were thinking about ideas at the time, and it was definitely a moment of clarity. Why was it that idea that you pursued? As in, I imagine that you've had others in the past, or even like very close to that point. What was it about that idea that you thought, okay, I'm going to go for this, and not just sort of think, yeah, that's a good idea, but let me just carry on with my life?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I've never really thought about it, to be honest. Because yeah, like we've said, I was having a lot of different ideas at the time, and I think this probably just stuck with me, that it seemed really obvious to me at the time, and that the path to actually testing it seemed quite simple. Like it seemed that the first few steps in that business were already sort of mapped out for me. It seemed quite obvious what to do next, and something that
Mm.
to order their food. And it seemed like there was a lot of similarities there. And yeah, as I said, they'd made a big splash. The round they raised from Index Ventures at the time was really significant in terms of the type of money that they raised. And wasn't many people raising anything close to that in consumer, at the time.
Yeah, so I suppose you saw that convenience delivery service model that ultimately became, well, it is massive now, but then applying that to a maybe more of a legacy business model in the laundry service. Yeah, in retrospect, it certainly makes sense. But on the topic of what you did next, yeah, let's go into those points. I was looking through and thinking, what do I start with earlier? I don't know if this was the actual dry cleaners that you actually ran past, but you said that you met Jeff, a great local dry cleaner, and started to really learn about the business, quality, customer care, and reliability.
Yeah, so there was a few steps before Jeff where
Yeah.
I'd partnered with maybe not the most reliable or customer focused dry cleaners. That was a bit of a rude introduction to the business and things that can go wrong. But yeah, when I first met Jeff after those, yeah, few earlier issues, shall we say, that it really showed me what a great dry cleaner was like, and how they looked after their customers, how they looked after their customers' clothes. And when we first started, um, the the business only had one delivery slot. Like now, we deliver from 7 in the morning till 11 at night in some places, and offer 1 hour slots right through the day. But when I first started, the delivery slot was 7:30 until 9 o'clock at night. So there was only that one slot, and that was based on the fact that I was still working somewhere else, and I was the only driver. Whilst I thought that would be the convenient time for people like me. And I used to bring the shirts and the dry cleaning into Jeff, and then I'd pick things up from him at 7 o'clock in the evening before I went out, and delivered them to the various customers. And for probably 3 or 4 months, I'd go in to pick the items up that Jeff had cleaned, and I just stand at the end of his counter and talk to him. But as much as actually talking to him, it was our conversations were frequently interrupted by other customers walking into his shop, and the way that he interacted with those customers, the way that he went the extra mile for them, the way that he took real glee in getting stains out of their favourite dress, their shirts, and he knew all his customers' names. And his shop officially closed at 7:30. He never closed the door until like 7:35, 7:40, and without fail, someone had run through the door at 7:33, saying, "Oh, thank God you stayed open, Jeff. I've got an interview tomorrow. I've got a big meeting tomorrow." And just lots of little things that really. That the whole customer experience, there was never any customers coming in with complaints about things going wrong with their clothes, and everything was just done super well. And yeah, it taught me a lot about the business, about what was important to customers, about how to treat customers, and it also, I think, formed a big part of the ethos behind I Hate Ironing, is that we work with great local dry cleaners. There was other businesses that came into our industry, and they tried to sort of circumnavigate the local dry cleaners, and started big factories out in Park Royal and other places in West London that would serve the whole of London. And I got to see just how valuable these super passionate small business owners are, and now we're lucky to have 70 of them partnering with I Hate Ironing. But without that sort of exposure to a great local dry cleaner in the early days, we might have gone down a different route ourselves.
Did you have issue building the first version of the website? How did you actually manage to do that? You say it was with your brother's help. Is he someone that can build websites? I know now it's maybe a bit easier than it was, but yeah, how do you actually do that?
Yeah, it's funny that the extent to which technology's changed in the sort of last 12 years. So my brother's background's actually in fine art. He went to the Royal College of Art to study fine art painting. Was shown in Germany, America, Austria, and lots of places around the world. And he'd started to integrate bits of technology into his artistic practice, and he'd become quite interested in technology. And he'd had his the first of his two daughters, Zara, and whilst art was his passion, he'd sometimes have an exhibition, and then maybe not sell any artwork for 6 months, and he needed to have a bit more regular income with the arrival of his daughter. So he started learning to build websites, and mine was one of the early ones. So when he got stuck, he had a big collection of books on CSS and PHP as the existing site was built with. And when he got stuck on something, I'd research and try and figure out how to solve the problem. And I'd come back to him 20 minutes later, or half an hour later, with a couple of things to try. And yeah, by hook or by crook, we got something up and running in a month or so.
Good partnership there, clearly.
Yeah,
but you're
yeah,
right.
Yeah. It was certainly a great time. Really exciting. And yeah, I do. I see a lot of. I spoke to somebody today actually who's been trying to start their own business, and she feels she can't really move forward without external investment. And I've heard that from a couple of people recently, and I think how much easier it is to build something now than it was 10 years ago. I really think that if you don't necessarily need external investment to get a version 1 of your app or your site out there. I think there's if you're committed enough to getting something done, you should be able to find a way.
Yeah, it intuitively makes so much sense. If you just have to be crafty enough to find ways of doing things that may not be the most glamorous version in the world, but you just need that, as you say, version 1 that you can demonstrate a product with and do a lot of the legwork yourself. That's certainly a way that I see a lot of founders, successful founders starting. You did a few more things. So you were handing out leaflets around Clapham. I don't know if it was Clapham Common or just in Clapham. So you said handed out 5,000 leaflets around Clapham to get my first order. So I assume maybe 5,000 to success of one. I don't know. I remember the elation when it came and the nerves ringing the doorbells. Yeah, that is nerve wracking. Doing that. How does it go?
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting time looking back. I had 5,000 leaflets printed, and over the course of about a week and a half, I delivered them through every door around between Clapham North and Clapham Common, and all the streets that run off Clapham High Street there. And this was at that time. I really didn't know whether anybody would order or not. But I felt like, why wouldn't they? It's so much better than like having to drag all your stuff down to the dry cleaners if someone's going to deliver it for you. So yeah, I handed out the 5,000 leaflets, and no orders came in. So I kept doing test orders on the website myself to see if it was actually working or not. And yeah, it was working. And eventually, after a few days, the first order came in, and somebody had booked to have their shirts picked up and delivered a couple of days later. I was so excited. It was an amazing feeling. Really amazing. But then when the time actually came to go and pick the items up, there was no delivery drivers. There was, to be honest, I didn't even have a partnership with a dry cleaner at that stage. Just what I think. what if he asked me questions? What if he asked where I'm based? Like what if he asked me about some policies? Like I I felt yeah really nervous, because it wasn't really a business. It was just this all there was a basic website that my brother and I had built, and these leaflets that I'd put through his door, and turned up at his house, rang the bell. He came to the door with a huge pile of shirts in his hand, and handed them over to me, and I had a large bag to put them in, dropped them in, said thanks very much. I'll see you on Thursday, and off I trotted. So yeah, it was sort of really exciting, really nerve wracking at the same time.
And the rest was history. But I like that, because it shows you don't have to have everything in place before you actually start. You don't have to have it all up and running and all these relationships started and the website looking amazing. You can just have a basic website, print a few 5,000 flyers off, and go from there. Work it out once you get that order. I think it seems like a good way to do it. You've got that demand validation. Someone wants to use your service, so then you go from there. But I imagine that first, I don't know if this is right, but the first order you got certainly felt as good as any other orders that you got subsequently, even if they were like far greater in volume.
Yeah, what a great feeling. You've had this idea, and you've thought about the idea, and then you've gone and worked on it, and you've eventually got that website, and then you hand out the flyers, and you've done all this work, and then that validation is amazing, and the excitement of that first order dropping in, and the customer placing his order and getting the shirts back to him, and it was great. Such a a fantastic thing to do. And if I ever start another business, I'd probably be in a different position to what I was back then, in terms of finance and contacts, and I'd probably do things slightly differently, and I'm not sure it would be that experience would ever be as sweet again. So I think there's a lot to be said for humble beginnings.
Not only did you print 5,000 flyers out, but you also spammed Airbnb hosts. So you said, I spammed Airbnb hosts as potential guests that offered to clean their linen, got some initial traction. So it sounds like that was successful in some part.
Yeah, so I think outside the leaflets, one of the other things I did when I was in the really early stages was posed as a guest, and you could message hosts on Airbnb, I guess, as you can now, and my messages were quite apologetic that I'm sorry to reach out to you in this way, which might seem a little bit inappropriate, but your flat looks great, and we've got a linen service where we can pick up your bedding and your towels after your guest checks out, and deliver them back to you if you're interested. Here's some contact details, and gradually Airbnb were sort of shut me out, but by the time they did, I think my account got shut, and then I opened another account and did the same thing, and then I think the ihateironing then got they must have blacklisted our name. You couldn't do .com anyway, but the sort of how we spelt our name then got blacklisted. But I think by the time they blocked me completely, I think I probably had about 10 or 12 Airbnb clients, and these people might have had two or three apartments each, and each order would be £100 or Yeah, and so we'd we sort of had a little bit of traction and some really regular customers. So these people might use you once a week, they might use you twice a week, and yeah, it was a great way to get a little bit of. It wasn't sustainable, and it wasn't something that I could scale, but it was really good just to get a little bit of initial revenue, and everything was incremental with ihateironing. We got some early traction, and then we started to build out our network of dry cleaners. Alex Adamu, who I'd known from my time at the hatchery, started recruiting dry cleaners all around London, and then we started to do a little bit of PPC and SEO, which generated more customers, and then we got some interest from some investors that were early customers of ours, and step by step we started to build and develop the business.
Yeah, it just shows you have to be a bit creative, don't you, when you're especially at those early days trying to get the initial customers on board. You thought a bit out the box there, posing as a customer, but clearly it worked. Even getting 10, 12, they're going to have, as you say, 2-3 apartments each, recurring revenue. As long as they exist, they're always going to need linen clean. So I like that part though of, you do need to put so much effort in at the beginning to get that initial traction. It isn't just going to come to you because you've created this solution. You really need to go out there and get the clients yourself.
Yeah, I think that's it. Those early stages, there was a lot of hustle, a lot of hard work, and there was certainly put a huge amount of energy in the business to go from zero to something. That getting that initial bit of momentum is super tough, but I think if you're passionate and energetic enough, then there's usually a way.
Find a way. We've talked about some things that have gone well. We're almost at time, but I want to talk about it. There's one thing that didn't go so well. I think it's probably inherent in the business that you're in that not every shirt is going to be, 100%. I mean, it's probably a lot less rate than my ironing, which is probably like a 1 in 5. I probably need to use your business, but you do say that you, on one occasion, damaged a customer's shirt. I got an email with pictures of burn marks. I had to talk to him on the phone, go to his house, pick them up, and try and fix it.
Yeah, the first few customers, it all went really smoothly, and I was starting to get quite confident that I've got a really good business model. Like I've got a solution to people's problems. I can see a route to scaling it, and I think maybe it was our fifth or sixth order, and this email came in with this this guy was clearly really upset, and showing pictures of his shirts with these black marks on them, and he just like some of the things that I was worried that first customer might have said on the doorstep. This guy was saying it in an email, and he said, "What kind of business is this? Like, do you guys know what you're doing?" And my heart sunk, and I thought, "Oh no, maybe it's it's not so easy after all." And I genuinely felt really bad that something that I'd created had what looked like it really damaged this man's shirts. And so I rang him up and said sorry, and said we'll fix it. We'll pick them up, and if we can resolve the issue, we will do. If not, then we'll compensate you and buy you some new shirts. And the whole experience was it was a bit awkward speaking to him, and it felt really a bit of a downer getting the email, and eventually I sorted the problem out, and it was a real sort of eye opener.
I was going to say, because on the face of it, it sounds quite negative, but like all things, there certainly seems like it was a positive in the end. And I suppose, if anything, as you say, it gives you a better understanding about the breadth and depth of the quality and variance of dry cleaners, but also suppose just handling customer complaints and maybe realizing that not every single one is going to go 100%, and that's just something that you need to get used to, and that's probably a wider lesson in business. I know we are at time. I've taken too much of your time up, but I was thinking how to end the episode, and you mentioned it earlier, and you said that you wouldn't do things the same way now if you started a business as when you started I Hate Ironing. What are the, I suppose, the top or key things that you do differently now?
I think that the major thing would be I'd want to have the whole service absolutely perfected at one small location before growing into other parts of London. So say we started in Clapham and then Shoreditch, basically where I lived and where I was working. And I think the big thing that I would have done differently is that I would have had everything working perfectly in those two sites or in one of those sites before expanding geographically, because implementing change in one location with one dry cleaner is relatively easy, but iterating the service and each iteration having to embed those changes with 50 or 70 different partners is really, really difficult to do. I think that would have been the big thing that I would have done differently, but hindsight's always 2020, and there is the chance that if we'd taken that route, we wouldn't have had sufficient early traction to raise a bit of funding before other new entrants joined the market. So yeah, I think that would have been a smarter thing to do, but you never know. Maybe it would have caused us other problems in terms of other people raising money and us not getting out of the gates. So yeah,
Hindsight is 2020, but a good lesson nonetheless.
No regrets.
No hashtag no regrets. A good way to end. I think you've given a very clear blueprint, very much to the point. So yeah, Matt Connelly, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Phil. Great speaking to you.